I was reborn with my twin sister Chloe on the very day we met Noah. Chloe shoved me into the fountain, rushing off without hesitation to save him. Just because Noah was the illegitimate son of a business tycoon who would one day rule over Ocean City, stirring storms with a flick of his hand. I shook off the water clinging to me and gave a calm smile, letting her go. Without my support, Noah was nothing more than a deranged demon. In my previous life, I died in the very year I inherited the entire Carter fortune, the brightest year of my life. I could have sat atop billions, living freely and beautifully for the rest of my days, but my dear sister Chloe couldn't bear it. She waited for the moment I was off guard, then shoved me off the yacht. Pretending to be brave, she jumped after me to save me. In the water, she seized my hair and forced my head under. My vision blurred as seawater gushed into my nose, laggard, burning down my throat. A sharp, metallic sweetness burst inside my chest as if it would explode. She wasn't satisfied with letting me die quietly. She yanked me up from the water, laughing manically like a fiend from hell, only to shove me down again and again. "We're twins. Why do you get to marry into wealth while I'm stuck with a gambling, abusive drunk, living in misery and shame? If I had been the one to save Noah, I would have been the one to rise in fortune. Why should you get it all? You stole everything from me. I practiced swimming for years. Now die. Ha ha ha." Even as I drowned, I thought back on my life. Even when I was caught in storms, I had never wronged her. Yet I couldn't close my eyes in peace, not with my heart full of rage and despair. I let myself sink silently. But Chloe didn't know how treacherous the ocean currents were compared to a pool. Exhausted, she was dragged down with me into the dark depths. "Beat that bastard. Hit him hard." The distant, arrogant curses yanked me back to the present. Chloe and I were walking into the schoolyard where it all began, the day Noah was bullied. I held back the reckless urge to rush in and save him, instead turning to look at my sister. Her pupils quivered, her chest heaved. Though she was grinning, tears streamed down her cheeks. She wiped her face roughly, then shoved me into the fountain without hesitation, her expression dark as water. "This time, I won't repeat my mistakes," she spat before swinging her bag and charging toward the crowd. "Get lost, you bastards, all of you. Get out of the way." Chloe wrapped Noah's bleeding head in her arms like a mother hen shielding her chick. The ringleader, a spoiled rich kid, kicked her viciously. "Chloe, have you lost your damn mind? Protecting this bastard?" Her face twisted between madness and exhilaration as she screamed. "Listen to me! His name is Noah. From today on, if any of you dare lay a hand on him, I'll fight you to the death." Her crazed defiance startled the bullies into silence. They looked to the rich kid for direction. "The hell are you playing at? Did you forget you were part of the ones who bullied him too?" A crack appeared in Chloe's tense expression. She looked down at Noah, half dead in her arms, and softened. "Noah, I'm sorry. I only did it because they forced me. From now on, I'll protect you. I won't let anyone hurt you again. Come on, I'll take you to the infirmary." From beginning to end, Noah's face remained unreadable, as empty as a puppet. How ironic, my selfish, power-hungry sister shielding the demon prince with such devotion. I climbed calmly out of the fountain, shaking the water from my clothes. Inwardly, I sneered. In my previous life, Chloe had tried to win favor with the rich kid by showing where she stood. Yet even as she pretended to be loyal, she spitefully kicked Noah in the face a few more times, knocking out 2 of his front teeth. After Noah eventually rose to power, he retaliated without mercy, destroying that rich kid's family business and leaving his relatives ruined. I wondered if Chloe's little display of loyalty in this life would ever erase the harm she had already done to him. Carrying the weakened Noah, Chloe brushed past me. A mocking smirk tugged at her lips as she leaned close to my ear and whispered with twisted pride, "Emma, this time, I'll pay you back double for all the suffering I endured in my last life." I watched them leave with cold indifference. In the past, one of them crushed my hopes while the other stole my life. Did they really think that just because I had been reborn, I would ever let them go? That whole day, Chloe circled around Noah like a cat with its fur on end, not letting anyone get close to him. At lunch, she fetched his meal. Between classes, she bought him drinks. From time to time, she fussed over him with fake concern, serving him like some doting maid. She even insisted on walking him home after school, helping his unstable mother change out her soiled clothes. By the time she finally returned home, the dinner my parents had been waiting to share with her had already gone cold. The moment Chloe stepped through the door, she couldn't contain her excitement, telling our parents how she had saved the son of the city's wealthiest man. Our mother hurried to the kitchen to reheat the dishes. Chloe toyed proudly with half of a jade pendant, the token Noah's mother had given him as proof of his identity. "Dad, Mom, Noah is the son of the wealthiest man in Ocean City. Once he returns to the Carter family and marries me, you'll be his in-laws. We'll never run out of money for the rest of our lives." Our mother beamed as she set a bowl of egg soup in front of Chloe, her smile blooming with joy. "Oh my goodness, really? Our Chloe truly is blessed. Did you hear that, dear? From now on, we'll live in comfort thanks to her." My father froze mid-bite, his eyes wide in disbelief. "The Carter family? You mean the one that lives high above the city in the tallest ocean view tower?" Chloe nodded proudly, raising her little finger as if to emphasize how little Noah's worth was compared to the whole empire. "That's right, but even so, once Noah goes back to the family, his monthly allowance alone would be enough to buy you a luxury villa." My father's eyes widened even more. "A villa? I've never even dared to dream of that in this lifetime. Chloe, you've really brought honor to our family. I've heard the villas at Fragrant Hills are the best. Tomorrow I'll go take a look and choose the finest one." Gnawing on a chicken leg, Chloe patted her chest confidently. "Go ahead, pick whatever you want. Don't hold back." My parents' faces glowed with excitement, their smiles so wide they couldn't close their mouths. My mother kept piling food into Chloe's bowl. "Chloe, you know our neighbor Mrs. Zhang? Her daughter bought her a gold bracelet. She waves it around in front of me every single day. So annoying." Chloe slapped the table, puffed up with bravado. "Mom, once I marry into the Carter family, I'll buy the entire gold shop for you. You can wear so much gold it blinds their eyes." My mother clapped her hands in delight. "Perfect. That'll drive that old witch mad. Her daughter only makes pennies anyway, not even enough to cover one of your meals." They were already dreaming of riches before anything had even been set in stone. The Carter family's money was not so easily spent, especially by outsiders like them. Families of that stature valued return on investment above all else. Even if Chloe had saved Noah, he was just an illegitimate child. Without powerful backing to help the Carters expand their empire, he was worthless to them. And besides, illegitimate children like him weren't rare. There were at least half a dozen, if not more. But my family was truly overjoyed. I lowered my head, quietly eating my rice, not wanting to ruin their illusions. Suddenly, my mother slapped the chopsticks right out of my hand. "Eat, eat, eat. That's all you ever do. Your sister has done so much for this family, and what about you? Can't you even say a single decent word?" Chloe arched her brows, lips curving with mockery. "Emma, I'm about to marry into wealth? Aren't you happy for me?" Both of my parents glared at me with disappointment, waiting for my response. I took a deep breath and forced a sincere smile. "Of course I'm happy for you, Chloe. No one could be happier than me to see you with Noah, but being the wife of a powerful man isn't as easy as you think." "Shut up." Chloe's face twisted instantly, cutting me off. "That's none of your business. All you need to remember is to stay far away from Noah. Don't even think of having ideas about him." I had only meant to offer some advice, but in her eyes my words were nothing more than jealousy. I forced a meek smile. "As you wish. As long as you two don't provoke me, I'll stay far, far away from you." Chloe suddenly leaned in close, her voice low and sharp. "Emma, you'd better remember your words. If you dare ruin my future, I'll kill you again." Chloe couldn't wait to drag Noah to the Carter estate to be recognized, but instead of meeting the old patriarch, she was thrown out by his legitimate son. She had no interest in studying and skipped classes for days, earning repeated warnings from her teachers, but she didn't care. Out of options, Chloe finally chose to expose Noah's identity online. The revelation exploded like wildfire. I laughed at her stupidity. By doing this, she had shredded the Carter family's dignity into pieces and thrown it onto a burning skillet. Even if the patriarch caved under public pressure and took Noah back, I wouldn't need to lift a finger. They would be forced to live in fear, walking on thin ice, bound to destroy themselves from within. Soon, Chloe and Noah became the hottest topic in school. The bullies who had once tormented Noah rushed to apologize and cozy up to him. To defend Noah's honor, Chloe didn't hesitate to rough them up. One afternoon, as I carried my lunchbox to the cafeteria with a friend, Chloe blocked my path, her face brimming with pride. She boasted that Mr. Carter had already acknowledged Noah as his son, and that Noah was now the distinguished young master of the Carter family. Mr. Carter even promised that once we graduate, he'll host our engagement banquet, she added smugly. So soon you're calling him Dad, huh? I said lightly, offering my congratulations. Then I wish you both a long and happy life together, and may you have many children. Chloe smirked. Sister, I've officially told you now. To avoid unnecessary trouble, you won't be invited to the engagement banquet. I smiled as if relieved. That's exactly what I want. Just then, Noah appeared, following Chloe's trail. His narrowed eyes were sharp and unrestrained as he sized me up in a single glance. It felt like being ensnared by a demon. The blood in my veins froze solid. This was no longer the awkward, bullied boy I remembered from high school. After 13 years in the Carter family, Noah had become a dangerous, deranged young master. His gaze was no longer the same. And then I realized with a jolt, Noah had been reborn too. He curved his lips into a faint smile, his expression feigning surprise as he looked from Chloe to me. You're Chloe's sister? He asked, his voice deceptively harmless. But terror from my past life clawed at me. My nails dug into my palm until blood oozed through. Chloe instantly spun him around so his back faced me, her expression dark with undisguised malice. You know I'm engaged to Noah, yet you're trying to seduce him? How shameless can you be? Remember what you said. Stay far away from us. I stared at her like she was a fool. I had no idea what part of her imagination made her believe I was trying to seduce him. Dragging Noah away, Chloe warned him as they walked. Don't be fooled by my sister's looks. She's rotten to the core. That day when I tried to save you, she tried to stop me. That's why I pushed her into the fountain. But honestly, she's kind of amusing. Next time, let's include her too. They were long gone before I finally absorbed the truth. Noah had been reborn as well. In his last life, when he was nothing but an illegitimate child, he had endured humiliation and lived quietly, submitting to others. But now, as the reborn young master of the Carter family, he had the advantage of foresight and countless opportunities to secure his place. He would never forget his early death in the last life, nor forgive me. His revenge was inevitable. I had to come up with a plan quickly. That evening when I returned home, I found Chloe sobbing on the couch as our mother comforted her. Without warning, my father swung a mop handle at the back of my knees. I'll kill you, you disgrace of a daughter. The stick cracked with a sharp snap, and a searing pain shot through my body like lightning. Cold sweat drenched my skin as I collapsed to the floor with a thud. Dad. I gasped. Why are you hitting me? I gritted my teeth, holding back tears, my voice trembling despite myself. Chloe's lips curved into a satisfied smile. My mother stood up from the sofa, her face blazing with anger. How dare you show your face? You knew your sister is going to marry Noah, and yet you still tried to seduce him? If you don't have the ability to marry into a wealthy family yourself, you try to steal your sister's man? How did I ever give birth to such a shameless child? Without a word, my father swung the broken half of the mop handle down hard on my back. Keep talking back, and I'll beat you to death. I let out a muffled groan, forcing myself to stay stubborn. I didn't. I said I didn't, and that's the truth. I couldn't care less about marrying into the Carter family. Not everyone wants that life. My mother sneered. If you don't care, then look in the mirror and ask yourself if you even have the ability. Tomorrow, your father and I will transfer you to another school. I won't just sit here and watch you ruin your sister's happiness. Her words froze me in shock. Transfer schools? That wasn't possible. There were only 2 months left before the college entrance exams. In my last life, I had been so distracted by Noah's return to the Carter family that I couldn't focus on my studies, and I ended up getting into a university I wasn't satisfied with. This time, I had to give it my all. Being forced to transfer now would ruin everything. I can't transfer. The exams are too close, I said firmly. Then don't go at all, my father barked. What's the point of a girl studying so much? You'd be better off finding a rich man to marry, just like your sister. I couldn't hold back anymore. My nose stung and tears spilled down my face. Dad, Mom, I'm your daughter too. Why can't you think about me just once? Humph, my mother snorted coldly. Compared to your sister marrying into wealth, your education is worthless. Something inside me crumbled. Because I was the elder sister, they had always taught me to yield to Chloe. So I gave up toys, gave up their attention, never cried, never threw tantrums. Over time, they came to see me as dull and unlikable, while Chloe's sweetness and coquettishness made her their darling. Every time she cried, they pushed all the blame on me, scolding me, beating me, never caring about the truth. I felt like a punctured balloon, collapsing in defeat. With a dead heart, I whispered, "Fine. Better to leave this house where Chloe targeted me and my parents crushed me, and instead throw myself into my studies with 10 times the effort." I dragged my aching body to stand, but my mother grabbed my arm, her voice cold. "Noah will be coming to the house in a few days. Since your sister doesn't want you anywhere near him, don't come home. Go rent a place to live." I shook her hand off, didn't even raise my head, and rasped, "Fine." So this time, Noah could never use my parents to control me again. In my last life after the college entrance exams, I personally took Noah to be recognized by the Carter family. He never went to college. Instead, he started at the very bottom of the Carter company, grinding for 3 years before finally getting the chance to prove himself. At that time, I was in my junior year of college, fresh off winning an international debate championship that made national headlines. I had even received an early offer from the company of my dreams. My future was bright, and I was overjoyed. But Noah came to me with $300,000 in cash, asking me to help him secure a $50 billion contract at the negotiating table. With that, he could stand tall before the old patriarch and raise his head within the Carter family. I was still just a student, unwilling to get involved in their family power struggles, so I refused outright. 2 days later, my parents came to me crying, begging for my help, because Noah had accused Chloe of stealing his $300,000, and she was facing prison. At that time, that foolish Chloe was off traveling the world with her delinquent boyfriend, spending the money recklessly. It was obvious Noah had set this trap to force me into helping him, while also taking revenge for the bullying he had suffered in high school. If I didn't agree, Noah's next move would be to destroy my parents. He didn't care one bit about the kindness I had once shown him. Backed into a corner, I finally agreed. He handed me a stack of documents, and I studied them for 2 days straight. Sure enough, in the final negotiation, I helped him secure that massive project. Noah finally raised his head with pride in the Carter family, and that was also the beginning of my nightmare. Not long after, Noah brought a bride price of $1 million to my parents, demanding they hand me over to the Carter family within a month. My parents were dazzled by the money. Not only did they forget how Noah had once threatened Chloe, they groveled at his feet, shameless in their flattery. Chloe, however, seethed with jealousy and hatred, convinced that Noah wanted to marry me only to repay me for taking him to the Carter family in high school. They didn't even bother to ask what had happened between Noah and me, or whether I was willing to marry him. Instead, they pressured me with threats of death, forcing me to drop out of school. My heart burned with resentment, but under the weight of power and morality, I had no choice but to bow my head. My parents cheerfully tied me up and delivered me to Noah. That night, his eyes were bloodshot, and like a frenzied beast, he ravaged me without restraint. My dreams and future were destroyed in an instant. With my help, Noah's position in the Carter family grew heavier by the day. The old patriarch gradually handed more of the family business into his hands, which only made him more dependent on me. To control me completely, he manipulated my parents. Before that, he had already staged an accident, sending the patriarch's legal wife, the one who had tormented his mother and blocked his recognition, straight into hell. Later, he used the same methods to eliminate the other heirs of the Carter family. I realized that if I wanted to truly escape his control and free myself from this madman, I had to seize power for myself. So I worked tirelessly, building my own network of contacts and influence, while secretly uncovering the Carter patriarch's other illegitimate children to stir up trouble for Noah. As expected, Noah, after enjoying 13 years of glory as the young master, could not tolerate anyone else sharing his wealth. He began killing those illegitimate children. But this time, I was prepared. I saved them all, and in the end, they joined forces to destroy him. It took me 2 years to consolidate control over the Carter Empire, and I became the final victor of their business dynasty. Yet I never imagined Chloe would push me to my death in the sea. I shook my head, brushing aside the bitter memories. Ignoring the pain, I packed my bags. Noah would never let me go, and Chloe would never stop at simply driving me out of the house. Tomorrow, it was time to meet my greatest enemy from the last life. My parents rushed to arrange my transfer to a school in a remote suburb, a place where, as long as you paid, you could enroll. The environment was abysmal. They rented me a shabby room for $200 a month and turned their backs without hesitation. I didn't care about the pain coursing through my body. Dropping my luggage, I spent 2 hours on the bus before arriving at the underground parking lot of the Hongqi building. Catching the moment when a secretary opened the car door for Don Carter, I slipped inside with lightning speed, sat down, and called out sweetly, "Hello, Uncle Don." Don Carter frowned and stepped back. His secretary immediately reached for the phone to call the police. The old fox was still as cautious as ever. "Uncle Don, don't be alarmed," I said smoothly. "The Carter family may be leading in the new energy project now, but your corporation was supposed to have the greater advantage. Yet lately, your bids have been crushed. Don't you want to know why?" Don Carter's brows eased slightly. He raised his hand, stopping the secretary from dialing. "Oh? What do you know? Tell Uncle, and I'll buy you candy." I crooked my finger at him to come closer and smiled. "I'm here to prove my worth. There's no need to be nervous, Uncle Don. After all, I'm just a helpless girl. I couldn't hurt you even if I wanted to." He looked around warily, then finally climbed into the car. I took his hand and wrote a name in his palm. "This is the mole the Carter family planted inside your company. You're a smart man. Check it out, and you'll know if it's true." His fists clenched tight, and in an instant his eyes pierced into me. "And what do you want from me?" I sobered, answering seriously. "I ask that from today on, you assign people to protect me until I graduate college." Don Carter chuckled, though his expression remained sharp. 4 years of college. Sounds like a loss-making deal. Why should I invest so much in you?" I leaned in, meeting his gaze. "Because within 4 years, I'll help you completely replace the Carter family and become the ruler of Ocean City." Don Carter's smile disappeared. His face grew solemn. "So young, not even graduated high school yet, and already talking so big," Don Carter said, his tone mocking. I raised my brows. "And my abilities aren't small either." With that, I stepped out of the car, casually giving him the address of my rental before leaving. He watched me quietly for a few seconds, as if weighing something. "If this person's identity turns out to be exactly as you say, I'll consider sending people to protect you." As his car drove out of sight, I exhaled heavily. The pain that had dulled earlier surged back through every nerve of my body. In my previous life, Don Carter had been my strongest opponent. To defeat him, I had dug up every scrap of information about him, studying it inside and out. That man truly was a mole planted by the Carter family, though in the end, Don Carter discovered him on his own. All I had done this time was point him in the right direction 2 months earlier. I stopped by a small clinic, got some ointment for my injuries, and hobbled back toward my rental. The suburban neighborhood was remote and unsafe. As a girl alone, I didn't dare linger outside. I went to school for 2 days, but the atmosphere was unbearable. The classes were like a circus, students clowning around while the teacher's voice was drowned out. I decided to take leave and study on my own at home. Fortunately, the curriculum had already finished 2 months ago. This stage was all about review anyway. One day, an old classmate sent me the final mock exam paper and mentioned that Chloe and Noah had completely stopped attending school. Of course they had. Noah had foreknowledge of the Carter family's upcoming projects and knew exactly how to succeed. He was desperate to prove his worth to the old patriarch and refused to start as a lowly employee again. That worked in my favor. At least he was too busy to bother me. I headed out with my phone, planning to print the test paper. But on my way back, I realized someone was following me. My chest tightened. I didn't dare return home. Dragging my still injured leg, I tried to run toward a crowded area, but under the blazing sun, the long alley was deserted. I opened my mouth to shout, but before I could get the word out, a hand clamped over my lips and dragged me into a narrow side alley. My heart pounded wildly, blood roaring through my veins. When I saw the man's face, despair swallowed me whole. It was Zach, Chloe's husband from my past life. He pinned my wrists with one hand and braced my legs with his own, pressing me against the wall. I struggled with everything I had, choking out fragments of help between gasps. "Go ahead, scream," he sneered. "The louder you cry, the more excited I get. Even if you scream your throat raw, no one's coming to save you. From now on, little beauty, you'll belong to me. I'll take good care of you. Ha ha ha." So this was Chloe's revenge, using this filthy man to defile me, ruin my college entrance exams, and trap me in shame for life. Zach tore at my blouse with manic desperation, his expression deranged. Just when I thought I would be ruined in his hands, two towering men in black t-shirts appeared behind him. Tattoos covered their arms, each over 6 feet tall. One of them grabbed Zach with a single hand and lifted him off the ground. The other swung his fist twice into Zach's face, knocking him unconscious before he even had the chance to fight back. They stripped him bare in front of me and handed me his clothes, then tossed his body aside like a sack of trash. Standing like mountains on either side of me, they handed me a new phone. Don Carter had sent men to protect me. As repayment and retaliation, I immediately sent him a name and address marked one of the Carter patriarch's illegitimate sons. With these two guardians shadowing me, I made it safely through the days leading up to the exams. This time, I scored better than in my previous life, high enough to choose the university I truly wanted. One afternoon, I lounged at home watching short videos on my phone, scrolling through gossip about the Carter family's illegitimate children. First, Noah's existence had already exploded across the internet, leaving the Carter family disgraced, their reputation plummeting, their business taking heavy hits. Soon after, another illegitimate son surfaced. Netizens even joked about whether the family was trying to collect a full set of Calabash brothers. And honestly, it looked like they just might. In a desperate attempt to salvage their image, the Carters rushed to hold an engagement ceremony for Noah and Chloe. But the internet wasn't buying it. Spectators raised their melon banners and tore the Carter family's secrets inside out for all to see. Now that the Carter family was under fire from the illegitimate children scandal, the old patriarch could hardly avoid resenting Noah and Chloe. Even so, he still recognized the illegitimate sons one by one, bringing them back into the family. I was smiling at the spectacle when a loud pounding rattled the door of my rental. It was Chloe, glaring at me with hatred. In the sweltering heat, she was wrapped up like a rice dumpling, but I could still see the cracks at the corner of her eyes. Lips swollen like sausages, her whole face puffed up like a pig's head. Bright red finger marks circled her neck and chin, so she had already become Noah's punching bag. I thought of all my past suffering just to keep the manic smile off my face as I opened the door. The moment she saw the two hulking men beside me, her arrogance shrank in half. I waved them away, and they gave Chloe a final warning look before stepping outside. Seeing I wasn't even surprised, Chloe grew 10 times angrier. "You bitch, why has Noah become like this?" I answered lazily. "Like what? Violent? He's always been that way." "Bullshit," Chloe snapped. "Noah isn't that kind of person. In our last life, Noah clearly—" I arched a brow and finished for her. "Clearly treated you with tenderness, honored you as his equal, played the perfect husband in every way. That's what you mean, right?" Her lips trembled, twitching as though she were seizing. "Tell me what to do. How can I make Noah go back to the way he was before? When he gains a foothold in the Carter family, when you secure him bigger projects, when you handle the problems he can't solve, that's when he'll look at you differently. But can you do that?" Her face flushed red with rage. In my last life, I had understood that truth. I threw myself into the business world, minimized my time around Noah, and held together the Carter empire while scheming relatives tried to seize power. With my help, the patriarch retained his place as majority shareholder, and only then, after his death, did Noah dominate Ocean City. But for Chloe, ignorant, lazy, clinging to Noah's thigh with nothing but flattery, It was nearly impossible. Her eyes flicked with a sly gleam as she sneered. Whatever you can do, I can do too. Don't get cocky, Emma. One day, I'll crush you under my feet. She wrapped her scarf tighter and marched away in false triumph. I couldn't help but smile faintly. Noah had been twisted by years of bullying. Violence was only the beginning. Chloe, you'd better pray for yourself. I immediately sent Don Carter information on a second illegitimate son. Noah, let's see how long you can hold out. The college entrance exam results were released. I scored 738 points, ranking first in all of Ocean City in the sciences. Reporters flocked to my shabby rental to interview me. When they saw the conditions I lived in, everyone was stunned. Some were even moved to tears, live streaming me as an orphan. Cornered, I had no choice but to explain, and in doing so, accidentally exposed my parents' favoritism toward Chloe. Even now, my parents hadn't asked me to come home. My videos spread across every short video platform, and for a time my story eclipsed even the Carter scandal. That night, two major things happened. First, my parents called to scream at me. Someone had thrown rotten eggs and vegetables at them, cursing them for abusing a top scorer. Second, Don Carter personally gifted me a villa, sending a message. Little girl, you truly are remarkable. So my next round of interviews took place inside the villa. That very day, my parents dragged their luggage in. I tried to stop them, but they forced their way inside. Dad, Mom, what are you doing here? I asked. My father scowled, tossing the luggage onto the floor. All because of your big mouth. Our house is surrounded by lunatics now. Who else should we rely on but you? I blinked innocently. But everything I said was the truth. I didn't make anything up. And this villa wasn't a gift. I didn't accept it. It's only a sponsorship, and I have to return it when college starts. Isn't it inappropriate for you to live here? My mother jumped up and smacked me on the head. Are you stupid from studying too much? A villa given to you and you don't want it? Too bad. Starting today, we're living here, and we're not leaving. An idea struck me, and I curved my lips into a mocking smile. Dad, this villa isn't nearly as nice as the Fragrant Hills one. Didn't your precious son-in-law buy you that? My father lit a cigarette, his brows furrowed. That bastard Noah doesn't respect us at all. Everyone online calls him an illegitimate son, and instead of fighting back, he vents his anger on your sister. You don't even know how badly Chloe's been beaten. At that, my mother's eyes filled with tears. Our poor Chloe, she's just a child, and already she has to accompany him to business dinners. She drinks until her stomach bleeds, and that heartless Noah doesn't even care about her. I answered casually, then leave him. It's just an engagement, not a marriage. No, both of them shouted at once. Their eyes darted away, their voices stammering before they finally admitted, Noah's not all bad. He promised us $20,000 a month for living expenses. Oh, I see now. In my last life, they had shoved me into hell for money. And now, for money again, they were willing to sacrifice Chloe's life. Perhaps they didn't truly love her either. My parents insisted on hosting a celebration banquet for my exam results at the villa. Their real goal was to cash in and show off in front of friends and relatives. At the banquet, I saw the one person I least wanted to see, Noah. He held a wine glass, his eyes dark and cold as they locked onto me across the room. Avoiding him wasn't an option. With my two guardians beside me, I felt a bit more secure. Forcing down my instinctive dread, I raised my glass toward him. Chloe instantly slid into his arms, blocking his view, glaring at me with a warning in her eyes. Even battered and bruised as she was, she still clung to him desperately, terrified I might steal him away. Pathetic. But under everyone's gaze, Noah shoved Chloe aside and walked straight toward me. I took a deep breath and lifted my chin with a confident smile. He flicked my forehead with his finger, an intimate gesture just like in my past life. Little vixen, he said softly, you're the one who spread the news about the illegitimate sons, aren't you? Have you had enough fun? Are you ready to come back to me? I hadn't spoken yet, but Chloe couldn't hold back. Fury blazed in her eyes, though she forced her voice into a pleading tone. Honey, what are you saying? That's my sister. Noah didn't spare her a glance. He continued. Emma, I've run into a tough project lately. Help me with it, and I'll make it worth your while. I've already placed your favorite bonsai in my home, waiting for you. Chloe's pupils shrank in shock. I feigned confusion. I'm not sure what you mean, Mr. Carter. As far as I know, we were only classmates. We've barely even spoken a word. Today is my celebration banquet. You do realize that, don't you? Chloe clutched Noah's arm nervously, her voice trembling. Honey, what project are you working on? Let me help you. I promise I can handle it. Noah's face darkened, his mouth twitching with impatience. With what? No one wants to see that body of yours. What could you possibly negotiate? Her eyes welled with tears as she choked out. Honey, you can't say that to me. Everything I do for you. I'll drink as much as it takes. I'll make sure you succeed. Honey? Noah shoved her off and took a sip of his wine. His voice dropped, sharp as a blade. Emma, be obedient. Don't test my patience. You know what you care about most, your parents, your sister. If you provoke me, you'll pay the price. I raised a brow, smiling faintly. I really don't understand this little play you're putting on, Mr. Carter. As for my parents, they cast me out for my sister's sake. I cut ties with them long ago. Is that so? Chloe's expression shifted, panic flooding her face as though she had finally realized something. Honey? What do you mean? Chloe hadn't even finished speaking when Noah smashed a bottle over her head. Blood streamed down her forehead instantly. He shattered the wine glass in his hand, yanked her hair back to force her face upward, and shoved shards of glass into her mouth. Then his fist crashed into her face, making her spit out blood and broken glass. Her expression twisted with pain and terror before she collapsed to the ground, convulsing. Blood dripped from Noah's palm, though no one could tell whether it was his or Chloe's. Guests screamed and scattered in every direction. My father was so frightened he fell limp onto the floor. My mother fainted on the spot. My beautiful celebration banquet had been destroyed in an instant. The police dragged Noah away, but unfortunately, he didn't spend the night in the detention center, because Chloe signed a statement forgiving him. Still, the news of Noah's violent outburst at my banquet shot straight to the trending list, fueling more gossip about the Carter family's scandals. The old patriarch grew more and more disappointed in Noah and began shifting his attention to the other illegitimate sons. But the scandal didn't end there. Noah kidnapped my parents to force me into submission. I coldly told him to go ahead and kill them. In retaliation, he sent Chloe to the bed of a greasy old man. I praised him for doing me the favor. A few days later, I noticed unfamiliar men staking out the villa. Noah was finally ready to make a move against me, but as long as I didn't step outside, they couldn't touch me. I passed the remaining illegitimate sons' information to Don Carter and told him to protect them. If possible, I wanted Noah caught red-handed committing a crime. Half a month later, Chloe called me, sobbing. Sister, please, save me. Noah did it, not me. The video, it's in my phone. Her voice was hoarse and weak, like someone on the verge of death. Before she could finish, the call was cut off. Don Carter had the outside heirs protected, but the two illegitimate sons the Carter family had just taken back were vulnerable. Noah killed them and framed Chloe for it. A wave of dizziness hit me, icy fear flooding my body. Then my phone rang. It was Noah. Hello, your sister killed two of my brothers. Unfortunate thing, she got stabbed too. She won't last long. What should we do, Emma? You're her sister. Come see her one last time. He started laughing, a ghastly, ghostly sound that made my skin crawl. I had to return to the Carter estate and get evidence. Unless I put Noah behind bars, I would never be free of this demon. That night, I rushed back to the Carter house. The place was swarming with police. Noah stood there smiling, reaching a bloody hand toward me. Emma, you finally came back. I glared at him coldly, spitting each word like venom. Noah, the one who deserves to die is you. He pulled back his hand, his eyes filled with indulgence, like he was coaxing a child. Emma, don't say that. In my last life, they killed me. In this one, your sister avenged me. They owed me this. Come back to me, Emma. Let's live well together. Once the old man is dead, the Carter family will be ours. I smiled faintly, turning my gaze toward the doorway. Noah, do you really think just because you were reborn, you can win? He frowned, his eyes narrowing as he looked past me. His pupils contracted sharply. Bastard, a voice thundered. Who are you planning to outlive? The Carter family, crushed under round after round of scandal and public scorn, had already collapsed. Their business had plummeted, branches across the country declaring bankruptcy. They were no longer the Carter family of old. It was at that moment I received Chloe's final phone call. I immediately realized something was wrong, so I started recording and sent the audio to Don Carter. When the old patriarch of the Carter family heard it, the choice was clear: protect the family or protect Noah, that useless, illegitimate son. Even when the patriarch personally confronted him, Noah stubbornly refused to admit he was the killer. In the end, I found Chloe's hidden video beneath a bonsai Noah had once given me. I handed it over to the police. Noah was arrested on the spot for premeditated murder. 3 months later, his death sentence was carried out. Before the execution, I went to see him one last time. I leaned close and whispered a secret. In both this life and the last, I was the one who secretly saved your brothers. Too bad this time they couldn't finish you off. Noah's face twisted hideously, his teeth grinding. You bitch, you tricked me. Even in death, I won't forgive you. I smiled faintly. Good. Rest in hell. Before the semester began, I visited the cemetery. I pulled the weeds from Chloe's grave. Since she had been clever enough to set up hidden cameras, perhaps she had finally gained some clarity at the end. What never belonged to you, the tighter you cling, the quicker you lose it. Better to let go and release each other. But for her, it was too late. When she finally wanted to leave, she couldn't. My mother was devastated by Chloe's death, losing all her arrogance. I returned the villa to Don Carter, but he insisted on personally escorting me to college. Standing at the gates of the university, suitcase in hand, I felt the weight of 2 lifetimes pressing down on me, and then, for the first time, lifting away. Noah was gone. Chloe was gone. My parents no longer had the power to shackle me. This time, I wasn't anyone's pawn. I wasn't a tool for someone else's ambition. I was Emma Carter, reborn not to repeat the past, but to rewrite it. I looked up at the bright sky and smiled. Power, wealth, love, those would come in their own time. What mattered most was that I finally owned myself, and in this new life, no one would ever take that from me again.